Welcome to Intuitive Seek. My name is Mary Treen, and as an intuitive guide, energy healer, and meditation teacher, I aim to bring you a grounded approach to all things energy and intuition. Everything I share is with the hope to help you remember how your unique power of intuition is your own greatest teacher. Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to your week of December 16th, the third week of December, and we are so close to the new year in such a busy time for many of us. And yes, I'm really happy that I decided to do these weekly energy impressions because they have been helping me. And for some of you who have reached out, they've been helping you too. So thank you. Thank you for joining me in this. And I really hope that as you listen, you get to connect to your intuition and your own inner knowing in new ways and have new levels of trust and understanding. And that is really the intention. For anyone new listening, welcome, and welcome back to everyone who has already been here with me. In these energy impressions, I like to go into a nice deep meditation with the intention to receive insight, guidance, anything that may help us move through the week with a bit more clarity and a grounded knowing. And with opportunities and invitations to connect to your own language, but not the one you speak now, but the language of your intuition, because it speaks in so many different ways, and it's quite unique to everyone. So before we dive into the week of December 16th, I wanted to share a little bit of my last week because the energy impressions, they really came in handy for me. Because the two parts that resonated the most from my experience during the week were embracing change and the tender heart, that marshmallowy heart that I felt we may be more sensitive to the good, but also to the not so great. And I did experience quite a bit of that. And it was interesting because during my work, with my intuitive healing work and my one-on-one sessions, the work was lovely. But everything outside of the work was really reflecting all of the things I needed to remember from those energy impressions. Embracing change. I had to take my beloved Bandit, my beautiful senior cat, to the vet out of the blue, unfortunately. He started limping, and it was the night before I was going to do my live meditation on Insight Timer, which I love doing so much. And I even spoke about last week, and I had to cancel it. And I didn't have any other space during the week to reschedule it. And so it was really difficult for me. I did not feel good about it. And there was nothing I could do because I had to take Bandit in, and it overlapped the time when they were able to see me. And it is what it is. But I had to embrace that change. And even though it's a small change in the grand scheme of things, it was big to me because I like to honor my commitments and I really enjoy it. I love hosting those live meditations. So anyone out there who may have signed up and then gotten the message that it was canceled, thank you so much for understanding. And I will reschedule it. And after tests and x-rays for Little Bandit, nothing was wrong. And that is the first time that has ever happened when I have brought a cat in, when there seems to be something wrong, that it wasn't worse. This time, nothing. And now he's not limping. It took like a day. So the vet thought, well, maybe he just overextended his little arm, his little elbow, and then he couldn't put any weight on it. But he was fine. So it's never fun to bring our pets to the vet. not the cheapest thing in the world, but how amazing that he's okay. And it wasn't anything. It was very surprising because if you saw him limping, it looked like something really, really bad was happening. And no, everything came out clear. So very thankful that he's okay. But yes, I would have much rather not had to change anything, not had to reschedule, not had to cancel, not had to take him in. Yeah, just was not that much fun, but I had to embrace it. And then I did have more shifting in my schedule for that week that was out of my control and I just had to roll with, and it all worked out. But it was a week of, on the smaller scale, learning to embrace change in a more flexible way. Because often when I think of embracing change, change is coming, I can look at it in a larger way, in a broader perspective, big changes. But last week, it was embracing the little changes. And that felt really helpful instead of getting kind of turned around too much and untethered. I was able to stay as grounded as I could and yeah, just roll with it. And also have the amazing experience of taking my super senior cat into the vet, thinking something was terribly wrong, and then everything turning out okay. So very thankful for that. And yes, very tender for my heart last week. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. I know with some people I was connecting with, definitely not. But yes, I had some lovely things happen. I felt quite celebrated on quite a few of the days, but I also received this really rude and quite a hurtful review on my Insight Timer, speaking of. And yeah, just a really bad review for one of my meditations that is actually one of my most popular ones. And I try my best not to take it personally, but my heart was more sensitive. I was feeling more tender, and it did hurt my feelings. But because we did the energy impressions, I remembered that. So I didn't react strongly. I allowed myself to feel hurt. I reminded myself of the truth of the almost 700 other amazingly glowing reviews. And I learned that lesson again that many of us have to learn if we share things with the public, that whatever we are, whatever we offer is not for everyone. And that means sometimes people are not going to like what you make, even if you love it, even if somebody else loves it, even if a lot of other people love it. There is going to be people that don't. And that's what I had. And when the good things happened, when I was feeling more celebrated and receiving a lot of beautiful words and appreciation, I allowed myself to feel that too, to help balance it out. And it felt like last week that was important to make sure that our tender heart is feeling both. So it's not so weighted in the hurt feelings or so weighted in the overwhelming, beautiful, good feelings. The blend of both, just like life. I was feeling life hard last week. That's what I'll say. And then to top it all off, I also hurt myself. I tripped. I moved too quickly, slipped when I was walking in my place, and literally felt like I could have broken my ankle. It was really scary. And if you have hurt yourself like that before, where you almost hurt yourself really badly, there's a shock that comes with it. because it could have been so bad. So then I had that shocking moment after, lots of tears, even more tenderness. And that was right at the end of the week. So, yes, it was tender for my emotional heart. It was tender for my physical body. It was tender for my nervous system. And I do know that I am not alone in that. So, yeah, I really wanted to share how last week was for me because it wasn't the easiest, but it could have been much more difficult if I didn't remember that insight and guidance that helped me put things into perspective. And I hope that if you listened to last week, that it helped you too. So let's get into the energy impressions for your week of December 16th. These energy impressions include insight and guidance through what I experienced in my meditation. I connect to the symbolism intuitively and share what we may need to know that will help us through the week. And then I connect to an animal as well that helps with more inspiration for guidance and what we may need to remember and know. And then I offer questions that you can use as journal prompts or in a voice note to yourself, or even just to ruminate on. Now, with everything I share, take what you need, take what resonates, even if it's only a little bit, and leave what doesn't. Just like my meditations, these are not for everyone, but some of it may be for you. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I experienced in my meditation was this beautiful image of sitting on a cloud in the sky, feeling really content and kind of dreamy, staring out into the vastness of the sky while sitting on this soft cloud. And then right away, dropping down to earth. And that may feel jarring as I'm saying it, but it wasn't the feeling. It wasn't like that where you are dropped or falling. It was more of the feeling that we're shifting, that it was a representation of that energy that some of us may have been feeling like we were sitting on a cloud, just kind of waiting, being in that dreaminess, maybe some uncertainty, but feeling okay and just observing out into the vastness. But this week, some of us may be dropping to the ground, coming back to earth, back down to earth. But it also felt like that may be showing that for some of us, things may start to feel much more different than they have seemed. There may be some like complete 180s on what we have decided or what we thought or what we have done or decided to do. So like last week where it is accepting, embracing change, this week the word is permission to change. So leaning more into, yes, you have embraced it, but have you given permission to yourself to change? And that word, permission, really felt like the theme for this week. So another aspect of this week is, what can you give yourself permission for? What do you need to give yourself permission for? Where is permission needed in your life? Where is that being held? Where can you implement that? Now, for me, even thinking about it right now, I can connect to those hurt feelings that I got from that one bad review. I could give myself more permission to be not liked. Give myself permission to create meditations that are not for everyone and that some people may really dislike. And maybe you need that too. Permission to be disappointing. Permission to be disliked. Yes, it could be more positive, but some of us need that, especially now because of the holidays, this end of year. There can be so much happening. And sometimes that can bring up a lot if we're with a lot of family or friends or in big groups or a lot of expectations on the celebrations. So can you give yourself permission to be misunderstood? Permission to maybe do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing? Maybe even permission to take a bad picture, because I know we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to create these perfect times and memories. And it really feels like permission to let that stuff go and permission to just be however you are. That can help us this week. And then after the cloud, after all of that permission, I saw rolling dice. And it felt like, okay, after we've given ourselves permission, after we've come down to earth, after we've seen that things are a bit different than we may have perceived them, is it time for us to roll the dice? Is it time for us to connect to what are we waiting for? Is there a risk that you are feeling invited to take, that you've been wanting to take? Is now the time? Is there a road less traveled? Maybe rolling the dice means opening your heart more after it's hurt, after it's been broken. Maybe it's even applying for that job in the new year that you don't feel qualified for, but you feel really called to go for. Rolling the dice on yourself. How can you take more of a bet on yourself? In not in irresponsible ways, but in ways that feel like a stretch. And maybe it goes back to that permission as well. Can you give yourself permission to take a risk, to roll the dice? If you feel like your intuition is calling for you to do that thing. Because when we feel like we could take a chance, could there also be in some way that chance kind of moving closer to us to remind us that we're not really doing it on our own? Could it even be divinely guided? Connecting to that perspective, shifting that, could give you more of a permission to really connect to what you're dreaming of. And what better time than this time of the year, right at the end of the calendar year, before the new year begins? Instead of setting traditional intentions, maybe set some chances. Where do you want to take a chance? Because it feels like we are moving into this energy that is supporting that. So if that's resonating, take some time and connect to what that is. Listen. Listen to yourself. Listen to your heart. Listen to your intuition. What is it asking for you to do? And then it started to feel like this week ahead, we could be having a really full head. Like our mind could be holding way too many thoughts. Some of us could even be getting headaches because of it, tension, pressure. It felt like our mental energy could be bursting at the seams. So if you do find yourself in that position, get grounded. That is the number one thing to do when you find that your mental energy, your mind is just moving and full and heavy, and that there's just too much happening. Get grounded. Go for a walk. Do a grounding meditation. Feel the energy in your feet. feel your connection to the earth around you. Get grounded. Maybe even visualize moving from a cloud to the ground where you don't hurt yourself, but you are on the ground. You are back down to earth. And as you visualize that, that can really help the energy move, help you become and feel more embodied and not so in your head. Another thing that could help for that as well, if you do find this week that your mental energy is just full and almost bursting, you could do a similar practice to the Artist's Way. In the Artist's Way, they do morning pages. And that's when you first wake up and you just write for 2 to 3 pages, everything that's in your mind, regardless of if it makes sense or is any linear, cohesive fashion. So you could do a similar way of timing 1 to 2 minutes, put a nice timer on your phone, and do not stop writing whatever thoughts are in your mind for those 1 to 2 minutes. You let everything out, and that can help release that pressure of your mind and mental energy. Expression, expressing things when you are feeling too full inside, especially in the mind. What can you release? So if those resonate with you, maybe just something to keep in mind if this does happen throughout the week, there are ways to help relieve that and to pay attention to it. Because there's a lot of excess energy happening around us collectively. That's what it feels like as well. So it might not only be your thoughts. You might be really gleaning and receiving everyone else around you, the world around you. Another way to alleviate that pressure, one last way, is to move from the mind and bring all of your attention, all of your awareness into the heart. And you don't have to look for anything in your heart. You don't have to try to receive anything. It's about bringing your intention and attention to your heart. And that simple act can help to move that excess energy down. Give it space. Open up a bit more. Connect your heart and your mind together so that everything isn't just being held like its own cloud in your mind. So don't forget your heart this week. That can be your grounded anchor as well. And then the animal for this week. This was, I feel like, the first time that in my meditation, it was the beluga whale. I've had whales before, but not the beluga whale. And it felt specific and very special for this week. So there's a few things with the beluga. Of course, many of us right away think of the Baby Beluga song, and that may feel like, oh, give more attention to your inner child, some tender care. We had this message last week too. So continue, if that resonates, really care for that child within. What do you need? What do you need to take care of that bright, tender, playful energy? So as I share more about the beluga, listen and see what resonates and inspires you. What does it make you think of in your own life? What does it make you consider or maybe remember? The beluga energy represents strength and gentleness and patience, social skills, playfulness, community, also good communication, and care and consideration. Beluga whales have excellent eyesight. They have incredible eyesight in and out of the water in very dim light and bright light. So this felt like a lovely symbol to trust what you're seeing. If we go back to the beginning, if this week you do find that there are certain things that you're seeing differently, that it feels like a 180, trust that. Trust your vision this week, comparing to dim light or bright light, not having enough information or having too much information. Trust your sight. And that could also mean trusting your inner sight. So maybe your intuition is speaking in new ways in your mind's eye. Maybe it's time to trust your imagination a bit more. Beluga whales are also known for their very curious and super friendly nature. So this week, if you have an opportunity to be more social, if you're not feeling like you want to be, but maybe you know that it would be good for you, maybe that's what that beluga whale energy is inspiring for you this week. Maybe really embrace the holidays. It may be exactly what you need. They are also the most vocal whales that exist. They're often called canaries of the sea because they have different clicks and whistles and chirps. They have so many different ways of using their voice than most whales do. So this also felt like, oh, this could really inspire some of us to look into our lives, especially this week, and see where some of us may need to be speaking more, sharing more. And on the other hand, where are you maybe speaking a bit too much? Where are you trying to fill the silence with all of your clicks and whistles and chirps? So paying attention to that. Where do you need to speak more? And maybe where do you need to allow the silence to live? And another aspect of the beluga whale, when I was looking into it, that felt like lovely guidance for this week, helpful, is that beluga whales have that upturned mouth that makes it look like they're smiling kind of all the time, that very happy face. And this felt simple, that because this time of year can be very stressful, can we remember to smile? So simple. But I know that just the act of smiling, for no reason other than smiling, can shift our mood. So maybe hold that with you, carry that with you this week, that maybe at some point, just remembering to smile to yourself, not for anyone else, but for yourself, can help you inside and out. And then the last piece of the beluga whale inspiring us for this week is about how their skin gets lighter as they age, that it becomes so clear and bright as they mature. And it reminded me of that brightness, that white light that holds all the colors in the spectrum, and how the beluga whale gets to that tone through their maturity. So this felt like a reminder to all of us that we hold so much wisdom from our experience, and that maybe we need to honor that. And that may mean that some of us need to give more forgiveness and gentleness and care to ourselves for anything in the past that feels like a regret or a mistake. Because those are all the colors of the spectrum that paint and make up the fabric of our lives. So if that's you, how can you offer yourself more forgiveness this week and really honor the wisdom that comes with everything you've experienced in your life so far? How can you honor and celebrate all the colors that make up the beautiful landscape of everything that you've lived through? It feels like that beluga whale energy can help us with that. So, yes, quite a mix of energies this week, but it feels really supportive and nurturing to so much of what is happening, especially this end of the year. And I did ask quite a few questions throughout sharing the energy impressions, but let me share 3 to 4 that you can focus on. And if they resonate, answer all of them in a journal, in a voice note. Just think about it, as I said. But maybe it's one, maybe it's all. Just really trust what resonates. So here are a few intuitive questions that can help you move through the week. So the first question you could ask yourself is, what permission do you need? What permission are you waiting for? And how can you give yourself that permission? How can you give permission to yourself? What are you waiting for? And then a second question could be, where in your life is it time to roll the dice, to take a chance, to take a risk? And detail what comes. Trust it. Don't judge it. Don't immediately call it a pipe dream or fantasy thoughts or wishful thinking. Just really answer the question as honestly as you can, and you may be surprised at what comes. And then a third question could be, where do you need to speak up more? Where do you need to use your voice more? And where are you speaking to fill the silence? Where do you need to allow the silence to be? And then a final question could be, where do you feel you could honor and celebrate your experiences, your life so far, instead of feeling guilty or regretful? So where are you maybe holding regret or guilt about something in your past that you could actually be honoring and celebrating because it has given you so much wisdom? And a simple way to say that is, where do you need to forgive yourself? Where do you need forgiveness? All right. So, yes, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Intuitive Seek. I would love to hear if you resonate with any of the energy that I'm feeling for the week ahead. And let me know at the end of the week as well. That has been super cool connecting with a few of you that way. And also, any thoughts or questions or anything you want to share, please do not hesitate to send me a message through my website, treenlight.com, or through my Instagram at treenlight.healing. And if you're curious about working with me or how I can support you, there's a link in the show notes where you can click and explore all the ways that I can support you and your energy and your intuition. And it's hugely appreciated if you subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always share this episode with a friend or leave a review. It is so, so, so appreciated. So thank you again. Be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you next week.
Hi, Auntie Mary. I just wanted to say something very, very meaningful. Cat.